Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I heard of the detention, and it'll be all right. We'll make good fun of him when he comes in. So I bought a quarter of a Chick-fil-A cookie. You need a snack while you're listening. We're going to go through a couple of high-level things, and then I want to spend a little bit of time on elections and the funding process there, because I think that's really important for y'all to know, not just with appropriations, but also as we work through this session. I will start with a couple of thank yous. I know last year SEC Square was a big deal, working through salaries and the pay structure for state employees. And I just want to say thank you all for that. It really helps with retention for us. There will still be somewhat of an issue with other state agencies that don't have to deal with the cap that we have to deal with. As you guys know, the Attorney General's office, the Auditor's office, and the Insurance Department, $30,000 ahead of us. Those three will be a little bit problematic as far as when it comes to cherry picking, as well as DPS and a few others. So I encourage you, as you look through that process, at some point, if there could be a way to maybe stack Verizon, not just by agency and by salary caps, but by disposition as a whole. If you're an attorney for at this level in this many years, maybe somehow we could streamline that process where we're not competing with ITS, or we're not competing with DHS or DPS. It's just state employee. Here are our levels. So it will help with some of the cherry picking piece that we're having to deal with now. So I encourage you. Yes, sir.
When you say you're 30,000 short, is that for a particular position?
So,
or generally across the board?
So the way it works, we're capped at what my salary is. As y'all remember last year, we're going from 90 to 120 at Secretary of State's office. The auditor, the Attorney General, and the Department of Insurance are going from 90 to 150. So they've got a 30,000 head start on us when it comes to, they're capped at that 150, but they can pay their employees up to that. I can't. I'm capped at the 120. So I'm in a $30,000 hole with those three agencies to start with. No, that's not to mention DPS, DHS, you other agencies that are larger than us and have to do more. So not only am I competing with the private sector, I'm competing with my own friends within the state agencies. So that's something I encourage y'all to think through as we look at this at a higher level. That said, thank y'all for getting us increased. Not me, but our employees deserve it. We've got some incredible folks over there. The second thank you is the voter monetization. The 8.7 roughly million I did last year for machines. We've got about 10 counties left to transfer over to new machines. So those dollars are being expended as you said they should be. I appreciate y'all moving us into the next generation of voting machines. It's going to make for better, cleaner, fairer elections. And I really do want to thank y'all for that. The Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund, while that's not specifically under the Secretary of State's umbrella, last year y'all funded that with $2 million. The year before that, we started our conservation task force. And so we put together some of the top minds of conservation across this country, basically to put together a map and a plan of what should Mississippi do with those dollars moving forward. So we are not part of the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund. I want you to remember, we're not part of that, but we are doing the conservation task force, and it has worked well to work together. The synergies that we're seeing through that is really helpful. So I encourage y'all continue studying that Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund. We can maximize those dollars to bring back much more federal dollars to match our state dollars. And it's going to be good. I want to say thank you for that. Now, well, so it depends on what program you're part of. In the Farm Bill that they're going to be working on at the federal level now, there will be multiple areas of matching funds that we can use for specific things in our state. The idea is, look, if we can fund this thing with 10 million and turn it into 40, if we can fund it to 20 million and turn that into 80, you know, these matches are going to be. I think the last number I saw, Mr. Chairman, thank you for dropping in. The last number I saw available for a certain pot of money was like roughly 300 million per state. We'll never be able to draw that down, but with the OSTF, at least we'll start to be able to draw a portion of it down where we would not have before. So y'all did a really good thing. I want to thank y'all for that. As we move forward, and you and I have talked about the parks and wildlife, fisheries and parks, but as we move forward, this is going to be a really good funding mechanism for the state, for our parks, for our wildlife and conservation efforts, not just hunting, not just fishing, but clean water, you name it. This is going to be a good pot for us to draw down. So those are my three quick thank yous. One, if you have some time, and I just came from this, we've got what we call our Student Ambassador Program. 56 high school seniors are at Wolf Walk in room 145. So if you're around this afternoon, they're coming actually student number one back to Wolfville. If y'all could drop in and just encourage those students. It's incredible. The lieutenant governor just spoke to them at lunch. Chevron is over there now talking about different career paths that they would have in Mississippi. This has been one of the most rewarding things. This doesn't cost a dime. So I don't want y'all to think I'm asking for money for it. But we had over 100, Mr. Chairman, good to see. I heard you were detained. We had over 100 folks apply for that. These are high school seniors. We had 56 that we selected. And it's been every month. We had a Zoom meeting and then 2 in-person meetings in Jackson. Today is the second in-person meeting. But we're introducing them to state government, how elections work, what is the process here, so they will know how to have an impact at the state capitol, and then also pouring into them, mentoring them. Hey, here's your opportunities. And as I'm telling them, Chevron is over there right now talking to them about futures in the energy sector. Lieutenant Governor Husband came in. Chad White speaking to them next month on their Zoom meeting. But it's been such a rewarding program. So I just want you to know we're not just doing things that cost money. We're also doing things that don't cost money to pour into our future in Mississippi. So really big thing there. We're going to leave you with one page. You're going to see the numbers. I won't bore you on all of that. 12.245 is our ask for this year. That may move a little bit with our fringe when we talk about salaries, and you'll see those numbers in your one pager there. I want to spend my time with you. I know you're busy, but I want to spend my time with you on elections and why I think we can save money. There's an ITS issue. I think Chairman Polk, you're probably aware of this. But we have basically 3 vendors in Mississippi: ES&S, HART, and voting rights. Those are our machine vendors. So when these counties are spending the dollars that y'all gave them last year, buying these new machines, what that money's for. On top of that, we have expenditures that are going to be having for the software and for coding. So when we have an election, they build a ballot. They've got to code these machines to read these ballots. That's the ballot. That's additional expense. So when we did this in 2003, 4, 5, that area, we bought TSX machines. The state bought those machines, transferred them down to the counties. But in the meantime, we paid for the coding and software. Current in our budget, it's $400,000 every single year, $400,000 for that expenditure. These are the TSX machines. As the counties move from TSX to the new machines, this expenditure is going to be really growing. So as I've broken it down, and this is just in a 4-year period, if y'all allow us at ITS, and we're working with them now, but if we can contract for those services for the counties over the next 4 years, we're going to save $900,000. And this isn't a, we think we can save 900. This isn't a, we might be able to come out with a contract with $900,000. This is a hard number that these counties have entered into these contracts already. But if we can do it as a whole, so the ES&Ss and the funding works don't have to enter into contracts with every single county. If we can do it as a whole, I've already negotiated the $900,000 savings just for ES&S over the next 4 years. So that's for the coding and for the software for these machines in all of the counties that we have across Mississippi. ES&S is by far our largest vendor. So what I'm asking is, if we continue the 400 that we've been budgeting every year since we got the TSX machines, and we grow that, it's going to be $750 per year just for ES&S, and that number grows a little bit with HART and voting rights, and they'll have maybe 8 counties between the 2 of them. So the vast majority is going to be ES&S. Do y'all remember the election support fund? We moved the percentages. It was 50-50. 50 went to the counties through us, and then 50 went to the general fund. We moved that up in legislation last year to 70-30. So 70 now goes to the counties through us, 30 goes to the general fund. Last year, there were some trapped funds in DFA that had not been transitioned over to the general. So we asked y'all for the authority to capture those trap funds and send those down to the county. So y'all did that. The $4.25 million this year in March, April will be expended down to the counties. It's by formula, voting age population in those counties. Those dollars can be used for cybersecurity, for equipment. And as we are moving into new equipment, you could think of these voting machines. And just for, as an example, there's what's called a ballot on demand system. So that's not included with the voting machine that you vote. But this ballot on demand system, if we've got issues where, hey, we ran out of ballots, you can actually print the ballots out of this ballot on demand system. It's wired into the system. So don't think about, hey, we're just going to throw an extra 1,000 ballots in there to rig this election. That's not what this is. This is I want you to understand not just machines that we have to purchase, but also these other things. So the election support fund is what's used by these counties to buy these new machines, to buy ADA compliant machines. So what's called an express vote. And if you hear people say, well, we're still voting on these machines, I want you to understand what an express vote is. It's a touchscreen machine. You go and vote, it's 88. It prints out a ballot. You read your ballot, and then you take that ballot and put it into the scanner, just like everybody else does that voted with the pen. So it's an ADA compliant. So when I say the CSF dollars can go for new machines, some of these counties are buying additional ADA machines. They're buying ballot on demand printers. They're buying other things, not just the equipment. So when you think, well, gosh, they already bought equipment, they don't need any more money. They do for these cybersecurity, for training, so all that type of stuff. So the 4.25 million to go this year, that's been an average of about 3.8 a year into the ESF. And those LLCs filing in Mississippi, it's $250 to come and file. So that number grows, and that's what the ESF is. When it was created, it was purely for elections, period. Now remember the sleeping fund, the bill that happened several years ago, legislature bill. When that happened, the funding mechanism was changed with ESF. So we're asking this year, 70% last year was the increase to the counties, 30% to the general fund. We're going to ask that we take the 70%, leave it with the counties, and instead of that 30% going to the general fund, 30% going to us. Now, that will help, and I hope I haven't lost you, but that will help us fund a few different things. One of them being this new coding and software expense we're going to have if we do this with all of the counties through that ES&S part of Voting Works. So we're piecemealing some funds from different places so we don't have to increase our budget. And we're able to use these dollars that are already coming into the state board. So that's a quick explanation. I wanted to focus on that. We've got one more thing that we want to work with. Isn't us. It's DFA, but the 660 building on North State Street. We've got a plan now where we can move to that in 24, 25, and we will be able to save north of $400,000 a year that we pay for tax hours right now. So I encourage y'all to help DFA where they come and say, hey, we need these dollars for 660. Lease, again, north of 430, you'll see the number on the sheet there. So that's a substantial savings, getting us into a state-owned building. And they've got some swing space. They're moving the people that are there now to swing space, then they can renovate it, and then we can get in there. So I just want y'all to be thinking of that as well. Help DFA get us in there. So they north of 400,000 a year. I think that's it. Remember the total?
They're shifting some of the people there to the War Memorial. So I think it's got to happen in phases. I don't know what their lottery number is.
Yeah, so they need money for War Memorial, shift people there, then they're going back in, renovate.
But little guy right here, guy had pulled in and gave me 6 inches to get in my car. And this front, this 6 inches. Well, I apologize.
Yeah, you're good.
Any questions from the field? 30%, how much is it?
So it's roughly this year, on average, the ESF has been about 3.8. So this year, that number will be just over 1 million, 1.04, something like that. Not a big number, but again, you're thinking about finding $350,000 more dollars every year to pay for this software and coding. Anywhere we can find it, we're going to try to use it. So as long as we have these machines, it will continue to go. Now, let me say something real quick. The 400,000 that we have from the TSX machines, I'm not sure why they did it, but they locked it in. There was no 3% increase, 2%. There was no increase. It was locked. The new contract has a 3% increase each year, so it's going to grow. Now, again, we can negotiate and get that number down, which is what we did this time. We got it down 900,000, but it's going to grow and it will be an indefinite. As long as you got those machines, you're going to have coding. You're going to have software to make sure that they. So it is an indefinite.
On your print on demand.
Necessarily. So how we do it now, clearly the ballots are printed beforehand. These counties that have the dollars that they can buy those, it's fantastic. It's a great system to have. You're not wasting paper. You can buy your paper supply on the front end, print out what you need, and not necessarily print extra ballots unless you need them. So we're going to save dollars there. It's going to pay for themselves over time. But county doesn't have the money to afford those, and they don't have it. So yes, if we have extra dollars where they can't afford them, it's going to be helpful for all of them. So to answer your question.
we're just, one more opinion on this. I know there's a bill to, allow online without program. One of your thoughts on that, two, something like that would pass.
Yeah, so I'm gonna handle this as delicately as I can. So typically, once you hear, and I'm a Republican, typically as a Republican, when you hear anything online, you go check. We've done the research. We did ODR. I think it saved money in the long run. I think it's smart. Future generations are all going to, everything's going to the internet. It's a cleaner process. So you're going to have cleaner voter. Be a good thing for our state. There are some checks and balances that are put into this system to make sure that you don't just get every register out there registered to vote. And it's a cleaner process. So
And they still have to vote by ID.
they absolutely do. That's right. That's right. So I think it's a good program. I think it will save money in the long run, and I think we get clean votes. So
I see. Yeah.
no, that's going to be wired through DPS. So that may be but if you look at the cost itself, I think it was like 3 cents per voter file because of the paper that, and basically, let's be honest, we have it now. Somebody at home right now can print off a voter registration form at their house, fill it all in, and mail it in time. So all you're doing is taking away that expense of paper. Somebody mistranscribing a name, a birthday, address, whatever. You're cleaning that process up, and you're saving that one step. So while people say they're kind of nervous about it, we basically have it now because you can do that, print your paper out, send it in, register, and then you can change stuff online now. So it's not really that big of a step. And it sounds like one, but it's really not. 38 or 43, one of the two numbers. It's
400K, they're going to grow 700K, 750K. It's 900K.
now, and let me be clear here that the 750 is ESNS, which is probably 74, 75 counties.
Number 400 turns into 7. Where he is, comes into that, and we've got to get the center and say.
Correct. I'll get you the numbers up. That if we don't have the 900,
Right. It's 4 years, right?
it's 3 million over 4 years, so we'd be paying 750 to 3.9.
There, you mentioned the 660 North building. Currently, you have across the street, Capitol Towers, on 660, right?
No,
You got nobody. Do you have anybody in the facility on North or on State Street? Formerly,
Did
you did.
yes.
They're all.
It wasn't 660.
They all moved Capitol Towers,
Right.
and so
We got 2 floors.
is that it? You've got essentially 2 places right now, one that you own or state owns, and one that you rent, correct?
Correct. In Jackson. In Jackson.
And you've got some other offices.
DeSoto, Tupelo, and Biloxi, but in Biloxi, we're in the DMR building. So it's pretty important.
This would just be moving Cap Towers lease, out closing it out and this into
40,
437.
37 years.
Is that-
It's about to go north.
Is that former offices? Secretary of
700
State?
North Street, yes.
Yeah, right up the street from 660.
That's right. I remember.
Couple of steps.
Back, yeah. I thought you still. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
But careful what you do. We'll come back to watch.
What do y'all?
Take a look.
Okay. Yeah. Ready? All right, good afternoon. Thank you for having us today. My name is Rashonda Kelly, and I am the Commissioner for the Mississippi Department of Banking and Consumer Finance. Today with me, I have Sam Hubbard, who is the Deputy Commissioner, Bridget Wiggins is our attorney, and Richard Rogers is our Director of Finance and Administration. Sam passed out some documents, and those documents will give you our budget summary. They will give you a snapshot of the agency overview or at a glance, and our contact information is at the bottom of that at a glance document. So today I want to talk about our budget request. I want to explain what's behind the numbers, and I want to share some information about the agency's impact on Mississippi's financial sector. So as you see, we requested $13.2 million. That is a 5% increase from what we are currently operating at this fiscal year, which is about $1.2 million. So $4 million down, $13.2 million in the requested budget for fiscal year 24. We did not request any additional examiner pins. The 5% increase represents travel and overhead expenses, about $600,000, $662,000 in each one of those categories. The increase in those categories represents the rising cost of gas. During, I think last year, right after the beginning of the fiscal year, mileage reimbursement increased. That was not in our budget. It increased from 58 cents to 61 cents. 63% of our staff are traveling examiner staff going to the institutions, conducting examinations of banks and non-banks. So that has impacted where we are now in our budget and what we've expended in expenses. And also the overhead piece represents an increase for the internal build out of our database. We are in the middle of our database build out, which is going to streamline information for our exams, operations into a database for internal office staff and field staff to have access to the information. We're in the middle of that, so stopping midstream would be detrimental to that progress we've made so far. And at any point, if you guys want to stop and ask questions, feel free. So why do we need this funding? I ask this question each year, and it's to operate. We did not request any additional positions because we don't need any additional positions. Right now, what we need is our funding to operate our agency to carry on the mission of ensuring the safety and soundness of Mississippi's financial sector. This year, last year, we were building out our budget during June and July before we submitted it. I challenged my team, give me what we need. We're going to address the elephant in the room. We have vacancies. So does every state agency in Mississippi. So there's a lot of our private industries that we regulate. We have vacancies. We've worked to reduce those vacancies. We continue to do so. We've reduced our vacancy rate from 37% to 25%, 18 months to 12 months. We continue to do that. We have people starting every couple of weeks because we are filling our vacancies. The one thing that we have not been presented with since I've been in my position is the market, the job market, the way it is. For last 2 years, people were clamoring for our people. They were paying them 40% more than we could pay them. We're not trying to pay people 40% more than we're paying them now. The job market is changing. Inflation is on the rise. It's starting to come down a bit, but it has an impact. And I think what we're seeing is an impact to the payroll of some of these private companies. And the desire to leave versus job security is starting to take effect, I think, in our staff. We are seeing a slowdown in departures. So I say that to say what we need is time to continue to fill those vacancies. Any questions so far?
Our medical bankers program, we've got the short dispensary. Positive things. If you guys have a ramp up,
Started this conversation in November of 2020, I believe, and started really going at it hard when banks reached out to us and said, hey, I want to get into this, tell me how. So we've been talking to banks about cannabis for the past 18 months, 22 months, in regards to what the expectations are on the supervisory level and what they can expect on the federal level. Because we, as a state charter, go into the institutions, but the federal agencies, FDIC, Federal Reserve, also go into the institutions. They're being a little vague. They being the federal agencies are being vague in what the expectations are. We don't want the bankers being set up to fail. So we have made it our business to be a part of conversations around cannabis, whether that's in part with MBA, Mississippi Bankers Association, whether that's in part with just one-on-ones at our office with individual banks. Some banks right now don't want people to know that they're interested in cannabis banking, and we totally understand that. We put our examiners out there as a reference tool for our banks that may be interested in cannabis banking. It's taken up a lot of our time, but that is our job. So yes, that's an added point. And one of the things we're looking for right now as far as positions is a BSA, Bank Secrecy Act, anti-money laundering specialist to help guide our banks through this phase of implementation and sustainability after they actually start the program. So yes. I'll see. Okay. Sure. Sure.
Finish the build out. You know what the number is called building out.
Should be done in the next, you said 24 fiscal year? Yes, it should be done this year. This year, by year end, it should be done. And I think the total number was about 800,000 over the past 3 years we've been working on this. So whatever's left, I think it's like 300,000 is left. Third more or less. We had, again, that company experienced some turnover as well. So there was a slowdown midpoint in building this out. But yes, so it should be about a third. Right. And the remaining number in overhead would be equipment. We have a with outdated laptops, which we are trying to roll out to give new laptops and equipment for our staff that's traveling in the field. So we are funded fully by the assessments that we charge our banks and the examination fees and licensing fees that we charge are non-bank entities. So no general fund revenue, simply assessment fund. So we looked at the fiscal year 24 legislative budget office recommended cut. They recommended we cut 4 examiner positions, which was about $500,000. The total amount recommended for our budget for 24 is 11.5, which is less than what we're operating now. It's level funding for travel, level funding for overhead, and level funding, which is contractual and commodities. This recommended budget does not provide sufficient funding for our agency to continue to operate at the capacity we're currently operating now. There are some things that we included in this packet this year that we have not included in the past. The back page of that staple document has a supplemental attachment. It includes potential legislation that might impact our current budget ask. Legislation that we are not pursuing, but this is being pursued by industries that we regulate. The mortgage industry, specifically Rocket Mortgage, would like to work from home. Currently, our scope of the exam does not cover security, information technology aspect of operating. We don't have the staffing to do that. When the Safe Mortgage Act was first rolled out in 2001, that was not a part of our exam. We go on site right now to those locations. We require that each licensed branch, each licensed location be a branch, a physical branch. They want to work from home, which is fine. Our contingency is that we have an IT area of the exam that makes sure that customer information is secure and transmittal and storage. The information is not happening outside of the security aspect of safety and sound. To do that, we need to hire examiners for that dedicated part of that mortgage division. The motor vehicle sales finance company, last year they presented a bill, it's a House bill, to work from home. And what we work with them on is including language that outlines a safety and soundness IT special exam if they want to work from home that we will include in a special exam fee when we did those motor vehicle sales finance exams. We've been told by both of these entities, mortgage and consumer finance, that they will present a bill this coming session. That document on the back just gives us an estimate of what the potential cost would be to add anything to our budget. So, any questions about that so far? So I say all that to say, I again ask for the full budget as submitted, $13.2 million for fiscal year 24. I feel this is fair. We're really trying to ask what we want, to be transparent in the ask, and to explain the need. I invite anyone to ask questions that they have regarding specifics of our budget request, or just anything in general about the industry we regulate. No. We tried again to assess what we need when we need it. So the assessment can be based on the need for the banking operation. And we do that twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year, as we see our budget. I have Richard looking at numbers. We talk about money every month, what we need and what's going to last us for the next and second year.
Your funding comes from all the
Yes, sir.
so then look at 22 actually with 10 million. The estimate for last year for this year 12, next year it's 13. So you're continuing to go up. So you got that many people coming in. So
you're asking, you're seeing my budget go up. You're asking how I'm funding that ask. We're going to fund any increases with the banker's assessments and or any increase in the fees that we assess to non-banks. So that will go up. I can't tell you about how much. It's going to depend on the need and the use of the funds. But right now there is a assessment statute that gives us a range to assess for banks. So that's going to be our kind of reference point.
3 million.
Right now, no, I don't know, because it's going to come from 3 revenue streams: banking, consumer finance, and mortgage. Consumer finance and mortgage are not assessed. That's an example. So there's a 3-way revenue stream that comes into our agency. So it won't all come from assessment.
When would I know?
What we do is, and usually at the beginning of the fiscal year, we send a notification that this is the assessment for this period. When they have an established frequency for assessments, it's usually in July, in February, depending on what we've expended, and May. And so they'll know from those established frequencies of when the assessment will come out. They won't know the dollar amount until we assess it, but it's a range. It's usually around the same thing. Our larger banks will probably pay $800,000 for once a year. Our smaller banks may pay $10,000 once a year. So they budgeted their money in their budget for our assessments, and we usually communicate with them throughout the year. When will the next assessment be due? What do you think the fee is going to be? And our factors have ranged. We use a factor and we apply it to the assets of the bank. The factor has ranged between 2 cents and 4 cents for $100,000 for all of our banks. So that's our factor. And if you ask me what factor, it's probably going to be a 3 cent factor, which is historically what we've been doing. So what we've seen is growth is going to be really assumption of assets, mergers, consolidation. We've seen a lot of merger activity in Mississippi. Our assets have grown like 70% in the past 6 years. And usually that's from out-of-state purchases of out-of-state banks. So we have seen a lot of that. What I've read is that merger activity is going to slow in 2023. I'm used to having something on my plate as far as a pending application any month of the year. I don't have anything pending right now. So that might be true. So as far as growth, as far as assessments or assumption of assets, mergers, consolidation, we might see a slowdown in 23. We might see a pickup in 24. That's what the projections are. Nothing in 23, pick up in 24. I'm not sure. But for the past 5 years, we've seen consolidations and mergers hand over fist every year. Sure. Estimated revenues for 23. Okay, so right now we've seen an influx of merger licensees because of the interest rate environment for mortgage companies. Mortgage interest rates have done what they've done. They've gone up, and we're slowly seeing a decline in our mortgage licensees, which is going to affect our revenue stream. In 2006, 2007, 2008, we saw a 50% drop in our mortgage licensees in 8 months. And with that drop, you see a drop in revenue. So what I anticipate for the mortgage industry is a drop in revenues because of the drop in licensures, people that are actually seeking a license, and the examinations that work for them. The consumer industry tends to be, when times are bad, that industry is good because people need short-term money. So you see more activity, you see more license applications during times that are bad and the economy is not doing well. So you see that. So I anticipate an increase in the consumer finance industry revenue stream. I will see a decrease in the mortgage industry revenues. Banking is pretty consistent. We don't assess banks based on the types of activity, choosing asset class. And so what we have also seen is banks have come over to have a state charter versus a national charter. When you add another bank to that pool, everybody else's assessments go down. So per bank, you might see a decline in assessment. Overall, you might see a slight increase. But that won't be based on the activity type, really based on the asset.
And I would say that the banks are, and you can tell me if you disagree, they are very pleased with how fair our pricing is compared to the national government. I think if you talk to any bank, they're saying it's about.
Now, what I think is that if we don't assess it, we won't spend it. I mean, I think the staff we have is we have 90 positions. We have vacancies of 16 or 17. We want to fill those positions. Right now, we're probably not going to be where we need to be at the end of our fiscal year. So what I anticipate next year is if we're asking for 13.2, if we fill those positions the way I anticipate, then that's going to be our revenue stream. We're going to have between the non-bank industry and what we assess, we're going to hit the 13.2. That's our estimate. We have a monthly financial that comes in. What are we spending month over month for travel? What are we spending month over month for? Yes. Right. Absolutely. Because our factor for assessing is up to 50 cents. Our average to assess is 2 to 4 cents. So again, I think our average for assessing 2 to 4 cents is going to be where we're going to assess for revenues for the banks. We were at 2.5, I think, at one period, Richard. And I think if anything, we're going to go to 4 cents, but we're going to hit that 13.1, 4.2. And we looked at the numbers, we back into the 13.2 is what our need is. So that's the revenue stream we think we're going to get, and that's what we think we need.
Last year, we came.
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
Down here, a whole different story.
You are.
In 12 months or less.
You are.
So, I mean, also the economy, private companies are not as coming after your employees, but as they were the fact players.
When I came to you, panicking, and that's the right word, I was losing people, several people a week, critical people that had been on for a long time. We were in a state of transition in the agency, in the environment. What I have seen by sitting back and being still, I've seen that that's faded to a point. It had to play out. And so, honestly, I think my actions and my requests last year were appropriate. Looking back, I have gained some perspective on what the need is. And we have seen a consolidation of assets, which we've been able to streamline some of our staff. We spread them out fewer places so we can use them for more things. So yes, there's been a turning of the tide. There's been a change in the market, the job market. And I think that'll work in our favor. Mm-hmm. Well, the office staff, we're hiring more staff that are open. So yes. You have exam. Well, we're hiring mid-career also. We're hiring mid-career between your mid-30s to mid-40s. Mm-hmm. Thing that I'm trying to do is because we can't pay them what a private sector pay them is try to drive home the benefits of state government. That is your leave, that is your accrual, that is medical, that is your retirement. That has worked. And I think that when you sell it as a package deal, not just a salary deal, you get more viable candidates. You get more long-term.
So my basic question is, number of people are paid
I think they pay less attention to retirement than our mid-career hires, but they pay more attention to the leave and the ability to go on vacation without being bothered. That's what they pay attention to with the time off.
They'd rather have two.
They rather have their child.
So, and I think that would be early on when they first start. The last thing on their mind is retirement. They know, but there's two areas that really, when you're getting about to be vested, keep people for that area. And then when you get closer to what's called the gold handcuffs, once you get, 5 or 6 years out, you're going to say, and we'll see that a good bit. With we're not going to lose many people. We have lost a couple just because the salaries have been so big that they've been paying over the last couple of years, over COVID, strange.
SEC's for elected.
SEC squared. SEC squared was sold to us as something else. We have struggled to understand what we can do. There's a lot more micromanagement with SEC squared, a lot more administrative challenges, a lot more headaches. I get kickbacks, I give a promotion, they kick back, say no. And I have to explain to them why I gave somebody a promotion. I'm here, I see their performance, they need a promotion. And so we're having to justify all the actions. Now, in the big scheme of things, the career ladder and the ability to recognize people for work done, we can do that. There's a whole lot more work after. Our career ladder, BBC career ladder was essentially abolished with SEC squared. And we're having to relearn what they will allow. I can't even get the finish. They'll kick it back and say no. We've had 2 or 3 kickbacks in one transaction. And at that point, I pulled the deputy and the director in to say, okay, when we get the second kickback, pull me in, call Ryan, I'll talk to Kelly, but this person hadn't gotten a raise in 3 months and they earned it 4 months ago. So SEC squared can be helpful when it's used or applied the way that we were told it would be. It's a lot more headache, a lot more trouble in getting our people.
Now we've gotten those raises. It's just been it's not. It's taken her and all of it.
It's been a challenge. Absolutely. Thank you. And please go ahead and reach out. Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
Hey,
Okay.
thank you. Welcome. Thank you. So,
I'm not new to the process, I'm next sitting in this chair.
well, I kind of tell you,
It does.
right, so we are running late, so, we'll go ahead and get started.
And I'll make mine as quick as I can. So, thank y'all for allowing us to come and talk to you about the wireless communication commission. But appreciate y'all allowing us to be here. I'm not sure how much y'all know about the WCC, so I'll give you just a quick little overview about what we do. We are, we're the Wireless Communication Commission, and we operate what's known as MISNET, the Mississippi Wireless Information Network. And we are in public safety. We have over 106 communication sites, and your public safety across the state use our system. Police department, your sheriff's office, your highway patrol, and now we have school systems, the police department gets school systems, your IHL, and the community colleges that are actually using the system. So we have right at 57,000 subscribers. Started in 2001.
That would be a radio.
Yes, sir. It's a handheld radio.
If you say subscriber, that's acre.
Yes, sir, that is a radio. And so we started out in 2001 with legislation, got our first funding, federal funding in 2007, and then it's grown from there. So, and now we're operating on the general fund state. Handout that you have, I have it divided out for you. This is our operating budget. And so you will see in salary, what I have at the top is you've got our budget request, what we requested, and what Elbo recommended, and then the that hopefully that makes sense. So in salaries, we'd like to go with what Elbo recommended and our 10 teams. So that's an easy one for us. In travel, the $10,000 for travel, Elbo recommended, and we'd like to keep that as well. Then we move to contractual services. You can see that Elbo recommended 230,950 less than what we requested. And in contractual services, just so you know, when we talk about those 156 sites that we have across the state, we have HVAC, 2 HVAC, we have generators, we have propane tanks, we have tower lights, we have UPSs, all of that, and we have power leases, land leases. All of that falls in contractual services. And so that's what this is for, infrastructure to keep those sites going. And so we are asking for that. We're asking for that request, for that increase back up to 203,000. In commodities, we requested 111,100 for commodities, and Elbo recommended $26,000 less. And so that is for propane. Each one of our sites has propane. And let me tell you what happened there. We used to pay for it out of contractual services. Yeah, we switched the propane to commodities. And so that's where that dropped down to commodities. And so we have 1,000 down payments to getting in our sites. And that's where that money would be used. That's not the only thing we buy, in commodities, but that's the majority of this loss here. In capital equipment, we're asking for Elbo's recommendations. So the bottom line is we're asking for $11,392,004 for our operating budget for the fiscal year 4. And again, that's 255,529 increase over budget. That's that part, and I want to move on to the Mifflin Refresh project, unless y'all have questions about that portion. Okay, the Mifflin Refresh. So the bottom section here is capital expense fund, and last year the legislature actually gave us the first 11 million of a $22 million project, 2-year project. So we're very thankful to y'all for voting yes on that. So we are using the money. But the remainder of the funds is a remaining 11 million. And so I want you to see how it's broken down. It's just contractual services and equipment. So we buy the equipment and then we're putting out at the sites. And then I'll explain what that includes in just a second here. But that's how this is broken down. So we're asking for the remainder of that project money. So if you flip to your next page, the very top, if you don't know very much about us, that kind of gives you an overview of how we started our funding. But at the bottom, I wanted y'all to see how this one refresh project is working down. So we have microwave network. That was a total of 13.8 million of this project. UPS batteries and power modules was 2.9 million of this project, and then 5.3 million is for software hardware refresh. So that's what, there's 3 components, and they've been busy on that. So let me just give you where we are today. We signed the contract, it's fully executed September 29th. So on October 1st, our vendor started working. And so what you have on that third page is where we are so far with that first 11 million. So you can see, and these are, we don't use these words every day, but the TSM, the Transportation System Management Network Function Management Platform, you can see where we've received the equipment and then installation is complete on that. And then the microwave service switch, the Wavent, you can see where we've received the equipment and implementation has started. So your last page is a map. And this is my little handy dandy hand done map, but I wanted you to see, this shows you the map of Mississippi. And then you see some markings on here, either a star or the pound sign, which will show you where we are so far. We started in zone 2. And so if you're looking at that and you're looking at the star, that's where we completed the MPLS portion at these sites. And so we have actually done 50 of the 52 sites in zone 2. But I do have an update as of today. We've completed 11 more. We're moving down into zone 1, and 11 more have been completed. And it's on my map, but it's not on yours, so it was new information. So we moved into that. And then on the other, you can see where we have completed, I think it's 16 of the 52 sites for the other section that, again, it's outlined on here. After we finish with the microwave network refresh, we'll move on to the UPS refresh. So that's the battery backup. So just in case you don't know, we are what are called hardened sites. And so if commercial power goes down, then it flips to a UPS. If the UPS, or it flips to the generator, if the generator goes down, then it flips to UPS. So, and the UPS also helps with that transfer. If you think about this when you don't have backup power, you know what it's like to pull that computer back up. So we don't want our system going down, but UPS also serves the purpose of they're switching from commercial to generator. So that there's never a bleep, you don't have to bring it back up. So the person with the handheld radio doesn't even know that happens. So we want to make sure that those UPSs and the backup is all working like it should. And then last is the software. So that would be the very last thing we do, and it's doing the software and hardware upgrade. So that's the last part of that. So bottom line, we are asking for the 11.3 for our operating and the remaining 11 million for our for the Miss-One project. And I just want to say that this is infrastructure for the public sector. And we all know what it's like if you don't take care of the infrastructure. So we want to, that's what we want to make sure that we're doing this to keep this system operational for those almost 57,000. They did, Motorola. Straight to Motorola. It's a Motorola, but it's like you can't do it.
I know. Company.
Oh, yeah. No, this is through the Motorola Solution, the big company.
Yeah, right now.
I hope y'all care. So I'm happy to answer any questions or any. I appreciate y'all time. I really do. So anything we can do for you.
But it's pretty close.
Well, thank you.
Thank y'all.
And I did check, make sure y'all are all on this in case you want to know, your county.
I bet you did.
Thank y'all.
Hot seat, one that steam is coming out of because they couldn't hide in the hot seat.
Sir.
For chicken from shell.
I did not bring that. It's just.
All right, hey, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, so much. Appreciate the committee taking time to hear from us today about the ITS budget. I'm going to introduce to you Tommy Goodwin, who's our Chief Administrative Officer, who's here with you today. So just a little bit about ITS. As you know, we serve as the central service agency for planning, deployment, operation of shared IT resources across the enterprise of state government, and also in support of a lot of other government entities, the universities, governing authorities such as local government, community colleges, schools, libraries. ITS has a dual funding model, and at the top of your handout, you'll see our total budget request for each of these funds. We have put forward a general fund request in the amount of $26.7 million, which is level from FY23, our current appropriation amount. We continue to consider our fiduciary responsibility of taxpayer and take that very seriously. Our operation continues to generate efficiency, so we're able to submit a request with no increase. We are also requesting a special fund authority to remain level at 25.2 million. So you'll see those are our two funding mechanisms there. Both we're requesting level funding from FY23. Also respectfully request to maintain our temporary transfer authority that is in our current appropriation bill. It's instrumental on cash management for our special fund at the beginning of each year. So for the benefit of members, just very high level overview of those funds. We call it our hub and spoke model. And so our hub is the basis of our services, and that's our general fund. And those are used to cover the cost of the services that we provide through ITS employees. So the staff of ITS technically support all of the costs from the general fund budget. These services, just a few of those examples that would be funded from this part of our budget, are our mainframe services. So we have mainframes that support DFA in two ways: in the legacy HR and payroll system, and also in the enterprise finance and grants management, the MAGIC system. We support both those areas. In addition to that, our state data center facility, where among other critical mission critical systems run. The Department of Revenue's income tax system runs in the co-location area of our state data center. So in addition to that, our core data and voice network providing voice and data communications in our Capitol complex, and then enterprise IT procurement functions that result in about 400 contracts every year. Our core networking perimeter security, where we are helping agencies protect the data as they go about their transactions that they enter each and every day. So those are the things included in that general fund, those services. In the spoke side, the special fund authority, those are costs with no markup designed to enable our agencies to consume those services. They are managed services, IT managed services, and they include the public and private cloud, the internet, virtual private networking, which is a security service, and remote location networking across state government. So those are locations outside of the Capitol complex. And for that fund, we provide those services at no markup. They can be passed through. In fact, the law 2779 Senate bill that introduced this model dictates that we would pass those along at no markup to the agencies. And it's a consumption model. So the agencies consume what they need to accomplish their business objective. If they need more, then they can allocate more. They pay for more. If they need less, they can dial that down. So it's a consumption model, very flexible. Next on your handout, critical IT initiatives for 24. I will hit on, be glad to take questions, but hit on those initiatives. Infrastructure and facilities. So we continue to maintain that investment that you made in our state data center on the ITS campus. And in our business resiliency plan, we have also leveraged a co-processing center in Starkville. So that gives us geographically diverse locations to house the state data. And I want to emphasize a few accomplishments in some of these areas, this being one. So our state data center is part of the City of Jackson Water Service, and I know that's been an area of concern across Jackson. And we did see significant decrease in pressure over the summer when the treatment center was down. Obviously, cooling in a lot of large buildings is heavily reliant on water to cool the buildings. Well, we had a problem with our water pressure. Well, in our state data center, we had very little effect on us because we have a dual cooling methodology and planning for that. We have water cooled chillers, but we also have air cooled chillers. And so that combination is able to keep the state's IT critical infrastructure safe. And pleased to tell you that it did so. We were successful in implementing those services without disruption. We do have equipment located in other buildings, in other state-owned buildings, and obviously every state-owned building is not built to the standard of the state data center. We were able to deploy some temporary cooling units to protect our infrastructure in those other buildings, but I think it's just a point of emphasis for us to show that the state data center was built and designed to house those critical IT resources. There is a little information page about our state data center in the packet, and would love to extend an invitation for any and all of you to come visit. I know we've had at least one member to come and visit the data center, but it's very impressive. Next on the initiative list is telecom and data network. So we have completed our migration to our new fiber-based data network and are in the final stages of replacing our voice network right now. Network benefits all levels of government. So all those that I mentioned earlier, your K-12 schools, your community colleges, along with state government, take advantage of these services of this network. Want to give you some pretty startling statistics today. So prior to that migration, we had just shy of 1,000 site locations on this network. In addition to that, we're about 200 public safety sites that are not included in that number. We moved from an aggregate of 18 gigabits per second for all of state government pre-migration to 155 megabits per second post-migration, while at the same time reduced the cost from about $880,000 a month to $460,000 a month. So it's very rare that you can put two statistics like that together. Either you have an increase in services or you have a decrease in cost. In this case, we increased bandwidth by 761%, while at the same time decreased costs for state government by 48%. Cumulative savings is about $5 million per year. So we're super proud of that.
And this is just so everyone, this is an infographic that's in your packet, and this sets out what they just said.
So it was a hard fought procurement effort is what happened. We created a network consortium across agencies, made sure that we understood what all the needs were across state government. We took all those in consideration. We put together, it was time for a rebid of our network, and we put all that together, and this is the end result. So to your point, these are some of the results that have been accomplished through this budget, leveraging those economies of scale, sharing technology resources. Typically, I'm a little more conservative, but I definitely wanted to point out a couple of those items that we've been able to accomplish. Cybersecurity, next on the list, always top of mind. There's a NACIO, top 10. NACIO is the professional organization for IT heads of state and of states, and it's number one on the list and has been number one on the list for many years. We have a layered approach to our network perimeter defense, and we think, although we've got numerous layers in place, that it's time to really think about adding a couple of additional layers. So that's what we're doing on that front in the cybersecurity area, and we'll continue to invest in that area. Cloud computing, another area that's crucial to our business and to enabling the state agencies to accomplish their business missions. Continue to try to provide a suite of cloud services. So we have several options available. We have co-location services in the state data center I talked about earlier. We have private cloud options within the state data center. And then we also have public cloud options for those who want to take advantage of that. And we've used several different models. And in our private cloud offering, I do need to tell you that we have experienced some reliability issues in the last year. And we have talked to our stakeholder agencies in doing some analysis on that. And we're currently evaluating that situation and want to tell you that there is a potential request for a deficit appropriation to inject one-time capital expense funds that would significantly improve our risk posture and take some of that risk off the table. And while we're doing that, at the same time, definitely want to work toward a hybrid ecosystem. And that's what I'm going to say all states are trying to accomplish, where you have private cloud availability and you have public cloud availability. So we're going to develop those public cloud arrangements and try to stabilize our private cloud area. On the list in that area, technology procurement. So we know that new technology purchases continue to become harder to procure using traditional methods. So we want to improve the speed, maintain the integrity. It's very important to maintain the integrity of the procurement process. Trying to modernize some of those internal tools, trying to add additional features for both state agencies and the vendor community. Features like workflow, document management, approval, those kinds of things. Also looking at policy improvements that, so we've updated our regulations one time. We're working on a second iteration of those policies. Personnel, our request is to maintain 132 positions as we have in our appropriation today. Really can't say enough to commend the legislature and the state personnel board on the revisions of a classification compensation program. I think this is the first step for us to move to a more competitive environment in hiring talent in state government. Just generally, I say this all the time. I think in order to have a great organization, you have to have great people because they are the most important asset of any organization. So for us, just like every other business and agency, we're continuing to struggle in this area, even though the improvements are on their way. We're struggling with it. So put together some statistics just for ITS. We've monitored the people who have left ITS. Where did they go? Why did they go? And so this has just been our experience that I wanted to share with you. I had some ideas about what these numbers might be, but I was surprised. So of the people that left ITS, about 20% transferred to other agencies. About 35% retired. That only leaves one other category. 45% have left state government. And so that's where we're trying to utilize SEC squared, to implement a responsible plan. To utilize that, we want to reward those high performers. We want to continue to work with our staff to retain that talent. Definitely remote work is an area, at least in our industry, that's really important to staff in order to both recruit and retain. So definitely would ask for your support in maintaining some level of remote work for state government. We have a hybrid approach to workforce also, and that seems to be standard across our industry. We're not asking to go fully remote, but that flexibility is a requirement from the people that we've talked to that we're trying to recruit and the ones that we're trying to retain. With that, Mr. Chairman, level request in all areas. Our general fund, our special fund, and our workforce. So right now, the way our policy is arranged is you have to be in the office for the majority of your work week. We have some options to be remote on certain days. We have a combination of occasional remote work where maybe you have an appointment that you need to attend to and you can work up until they get there and you can work after, but you don't have to come into the office. And then we have some that like a Thursday is your regular day to work. So to answer your question, as long as we maintain that requirement that part of your work week has to be in the office, they'll all be Mississippians.
Mr. Chairman, as an advisor on the ITS board, hard to try to come up with especially the one-time other requests that we may have for but the agency is definitely trying to help on some of the procurement. If you get the call, capability, but, I couldn't get over the amount of data, the bandwidth that we have. Well, it was pre-migration, but it was happening to coincide with, well, but looking at that. Ceasefire has done an incredible job with a lot of really, they brought a lot of really great things to us here. They've been very responsive and I really appreciate that. They will provide services that we do from now into the future. Yeah, so that would be Rutledge Street. Great. Down here, you can go locate. That's right. Anyway, mine. But that's something you can use to talk about. I'm sure they made aware that there's definitely economic benefit of
For the most part, in state government, I failed to mention, I'll answer your question. I failed to mention the statistics that you heard were just for state government. We are working on the final statistics for the governing authority side of that. We expect the statistics to be very similar. So you're talking about potentially even double what I talked about from a savings perspective. That being said, a lot of what runs through that special fund is the telecom contract, telecom services, and they are very widely used. The other up and coming services that we expect for agencies to take advantage of is the public cloud. And so that's coming, and yes, we're going to definitely emphasize that if we share, we're going to get better price. And so that's the entire concept.
I was supporting the environment. Part of
Gonna say the vast majority is paid. Yes, sir.
bigger in that place. All three have passed the bill last year, year before. Bill passed it, bill to the value. But my. Don't be attached to the bill. I know we had it. How many do we have?
Right now, we have 132 available. We have about 101 filled today. Some of them have been a long time. It has been a constant recruitment process.
So really, the reduction will be.
That reduction is unfilled positions today, yes, sir.
I know in your IT world. 5%. Probably out of each.
The SEC score, they don't choose.
It has. I mean, I truly believe that this is the first step on the way to equalizing our talent pool. We're never gonna be able to compete with the top tier IT companies in the private sector. That's not the goal. Our goal is to hire great people in the state, to your point. I failed to mention one of the other innovative ways that we're trying to recruit is we talked to Auditor Shad White about his fellowship program, Staying in SIP. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but we've talked with him and we think it's a good match for the IT industry too. So we have submitted through Chairman Delano general legislation to mimic that program so that we can maybe help take some of those students when they get ready to graduate, retain those working for state government, because I truly believe once they start working for state government, even though we've had many leave, when I sit around our management table each and every week, a lot of them started as co-ops or at the very bottom level. We're going to retain some of those folks, and that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I didn't bring them all.
Great job.
Got it all.
Did I hear you?
Thank you.
Come on.
I'll wear around. Y'all doing okay today?
Good to be on here.
You doing? Good to see you. How you doing? So kind of good. Still there? Girl. How you go? I can there you go. That's a good problem. Yeah.
Just gotta do something.
Interesting. Really. Is that an issue? Sure. There he is.
Sort of running late.
You're fine.
You guys are about ones and zeros.
Ours will be simple. Yeah. No ones and zeros. That's right. Yeah. The other numbers too. Yeah. That's right. The other. Yes, sir. We gave you a little one pager there, gentlemen, that we've been working on, and hopefully that's clear, but I'll talk you through it. The big punchline here is that we're not asking for any additional general fund dollars this year. What we want is the flexibility to continue to spend our special fund dollars. So as y'all know, we pull in special fund dollars when we perform audits of federal money. We get paid a percentage of those federal flows to the office. We get paid a fee when we audit county. So we accrue those special fund dollars. We really just want the flexibility to keep spending those in order to staff to the level that we need to audit the funds that are coming in the door. So I'll go ahead and tell you, and you probably remember me talking about this the last 2 years, with the stimulus dollars flowing through, more money means more auditing responsibility. So that is why we've had to build our staff over time. We really got to a point, this is in August, where we were down to 119 pins, which was frankly a little bit low, dangerously low, if we wanted to keep doing the audit that we're required to do by the federal government. So for the first time in the history of the office, we hired a recruiter, full-time recruiter who came in, and she's beefed us up to about 146 pins. So that was the strategy that we used to beef up so that we can audit all the stimulus money that's flowing through. On top of that, to kind of fix our problem where we were having difficulty creating a talent pipeline coming in the door, we created a fellowship program. So the fellowship program, which was authorized by y'all last year and is in statute, is pretty simple. If we find an accounting student at a Mississippi university that we like and they like us, we'll pay for their tuition for the rest of their degree and potentially their master's. But in exchange, per the state law, they have to come and work at the state auditor's office for a minimum of 2 years after that. So we launched that program last year. We've gotten eight folks in the pipeline now. So that was a good success for us. We're going to continue building that pipeline out. So we've gotten young students coming in, whereas we never had young folks coming in straight out of school before. We've recruited successfully. So now we're up to 146 pins. We think 150 is kind of a good number to generally shoot for. But in order to stay on that path, we need to continue to have flexibility in spending our special fund dollars. And those are the big issues that we're facing right now. I think if you had asked me a year ago, what's your biggest challenge? We're having trouble finding the talented auditors and investigators that we need because we're competing with the private sector. But because we've been able to implement your personnel system, SEC squared, and because we put this recruiter into place, because we put the fellowship into place, we kind of solved that problem. We just need to keep marching down this road.
We're beginning to hear this. Thank you for hands. All of a sudden, there's a problem.
Right. Correct. I think SEC squared for us really helped a lot. And we're really approaching this, I think, in a smart way. It's my chief of staff, Charles Woods, who kind of designed this system sort of based on how the military does this too. You know, we didn't take SEC squared and just automatically give everybody a giant raise all at once. What we did is give people a raise to get them to the place where they needed to be. And now for additional raises that are authorized by SEC squared, we're implementing a system where we're assessing the employee on how productive they are. Are they a good auditor? Have they turned in good cases? If they're an investigator, what are they doing to advance the office? And then if you're a good employee and you're doing good work, then we're going to give you additional raises to fully implement SEC squared in the long run. The short answer, Mr. Chairman, is yes. That plus these other solutions have helped us level out our problems. We need to keep going.
Your fellowship program, I'm not trying to miss 16 years.
So it's mostly juniors and seniors. You have to complete a certain number of hours in your accounting degree to be eligible. I think it's 54 hours. It's a couple of years worth of accounting work, basically. And then we'll pay for, if you came in at the earliest possible moment, we pay for something like your junior, senior year, and potentially your master's too.
So you mentioned that all they have to do is stay 2 years.
Correct.
Cap on the amount of money that we reimburse.
Yes. So we cap it at what you would have to pay if you are an out-of-state student studying at a Mississippi public university. So, for example, we have a Millsap student who's one of our 8 fellows. Her tuition is more than what, say, a Texas kid studying at Ole Miss would be paying. So what do? We cap it at what the Texas kid at Ole Miss would be paying, and then she's got to figure out how to pay for the rest of the cost of that Millsap's education. But as we saw in her case, that was appetizing enough to get her in the door. She was still interested because we're paying for a chunk of it. She's going to come work at the auditor's office. Our goal is to keep them, obviously. If they do good work, our goal is to keep them at the auditor's office. But look, if a student wants to come and work 2 or 3 years and then they change their mind and they want to go to law school and they want to use their accounting background at our office and their law degree to go be a prosecutor one day, more power to them. We still feel like we've gotten our worth out.
Potentially, actually, have the hours going. And after we graduate, so that's another thing. So that's 4 years. Which reverse.
Master's about 9 months for an accounting. Mhm.
But still, significant cause that's, and I was wondering if that's after. Under the scenario you told me before, that lady that's. Texas.
Right.
Let's say if I went to state school here. You pick up charges, I reimburse less.
Correct.
So
Yeah, it would.
Very.
It varies based on what your actual cost is. That's right. If you were at Delta State and your cost was coming in way lower than what the Texas kid at Ole Miss would be paying, we're going to reimburse you what Delta State costs here. There, to answer the other part of your question, Sarah Blackwell, there is no time cap or something like that. So, what we're paying for is your remaining hours to get your accounting degree and your master's degree in accountancy, but nothing else beyond that. So, if you came in and you want us to pay for 3 months of your degree and that was it, that's great. We'll pay for 3 months. You still got to come work for us for 2 years. If you come in and you want to do 4 years or whatever it may be, and you're eligible for all of that under the terms of this, we'll pay for that, but you still got to come and work for actually 4 years in that case, because the bottom cap is 2 and then it goes up if you get more. Yep.
In addition to the amount.
Right.
And there's no cap.
Correct. Correct.
That program. Right. So
Or I think this year it's, well, that's all in.
500K.
Like this FY, it's been 58,000.
Oh, yeah.
For this FY. And so what that includes is tuition, books and fees. There's a mandatory internship. We pay them, right? As contract employees in the state. So that all rolls in there. It's more than that number would include more than just tuition, books and fees.
and they start just
It does. So they're the best way to think of it is we bill as a fellowship. They are contract employees in the state. So they get the statute allows them to have they don't accrue leave and they don't they're not encouraged.
They are on health insurance though. So that's the added perk there. And of course, when they become a state employee, they're locked into that.
And they're doing work as well. In the summer, they're supervised just like a junior accounting, one of our FA1s, or ones that they have a supervisor that they're also doing work with us as well. So
And our,
it's generating.
and our billing. So when they're an intern, they're making the state money because they're billing for their audit work. So if they're auditing a federal grant, we're drawing down those federal dollars for their work. They're not knots on the log who are just there kind of learning. They're doing actual audit work.
out of the 8 fellows that should have been great.
That was Millsaps and then probably all the rest of it. Maybe some others. I can't confirm. Sure. 119 to 146. Yes, sir. So we were seeing this problem in our office, and this is not unique to us. Other state auditors' offices are having this problem. So I went to the National State Auditors Association conference this summer, which is very exciting, by the way. I go there, and the gold standard for recruiting is the North Dakota State Auditor's Office. The reason is that state only produces 300 accounting students per year, and yet they have similar amount of work to do that we have to do. They have to do a certain number of federally required audits. So they're incredible recruiters. They have 2 recruiters on staff. They go and guest teach classes at the universities. They build actual connections with students. They talk to professors. They talk to deans of the schools. Who are your students who really want to stay here in North Dakota? Who are the ones who just are a lost cause? They're going to Chicago. They're going to California. How can we be more active on social media? How can we be more active on LinkedIn? And when we hired our recruiter, we sent her to Bismarck, North Dakota, during a blizzard. Unfortunately, that was my mistake. We sent her to Bismarck, North Dakota. Yeah, she was ready to come back after that. She basically copied their entire playbook and then brought it back here, and it's worked really well so far. The other big thing that we're doing that goes beyond the recruiting, she's focused on this, is retention. I mean, if we can keep somebody, that's one less pin that we're going to have to find and fill later. And that's a challenge for us because we're being outfitted by the big CPA firms. But I think we're doing a better job now of convincing people, hey, this is the benefits of working here. You know, you can see your mission playing out every single day. We do audits that are covered in the newspaper that save taxpayer money. You know, you've got SEC squared coming in the door, so that's going to alleviate some of the salary challenges. And so far this year, it's worked pretty well. Right. That's a great idea. Yeah.
The little legacy story.
It's a great idea. We'll do. I think I like that idea. We're going to do a lessons learned doc. We'll do a lessons learned doc and 5 little tips. Might be helpful for ITS. I know it's going to be helpful for MDEQ, anybody hiring an engineer. They face exactly the same challenge that we face. Yeah. We are happy to be copied. We like that.
Johnson just, they're getting.
Right. Right. He had reached out to me and said they wanted to do something similar. So we wanted to be a pilot, you know, and if it failed, and we could show, hey, we tried it. This is why it didn't work. But we think it's succeeding so far because we've gotten these 8 good fellows in and created this pipeline. We started this conversation on campus where our fellows go back and they talk to their friends who are a little bit younger and they say, this is a really good program. You can knock out some debt real fast, stay in Mississippi. You want to move to Dallas later, go move to Dallas, or you can stay here. You know, I think it's working.
On your employees that leave, is there your service similar? Because I would imagine that it's something, you know, it's the younger folks. I didn't know it's in those, that you're one of the say that state.
It's a really good question. I don't know the answer right offhand. We can get you an answer on that. I'd hate to guess and not know the answer. My sense is, yeah, there's that vesting cliff probably loomed in people's minds when they're starting to think, well, do I want to stay another year and stick this out? One thing that we see is, we saw this with one of our senior auditors, is, you know, somebody might come in for a period, get trained at the auditor's office, get offered a big salary at a CPA firm, go to the big CPA firm, and then realize 2 or 3 years in, this isn't what I wanted. The work is not as interesting as what I was doing at the auditor's office, whatever it may be. And then they come back again. So that's one pattern that we've seen 2 or 3 times that I can think of offhand. And we like that pattern because lets people go out, get some experience, bring them back in, and we know we'll get a good auditor.
Once you get back, they can say maybe grass isn't.
I think they realize that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For the work you do.
Yes, sir.
We'll take all.
We the last one. We're going to shrug this out. We're good. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Great job. Thank you. Yeah. He is.